Alright, in this section we'll take a look at the SUTA quarterly forms. In the previous section we looked at the state income tax withheld quarterly forms. Now we'll take a look at the South Carolina unemployment forms. This form you can only get by the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, and you have to sign up as an employer, and then these forms are accessible to you. There is no way you can just get online and get one of these forms. So obviously you will not have to do one of these forms for homework, because there's no access to you of these forms unless you are in a face-to-face class. I do have some of these, which they made for me. Notice that it says Orangeburg Calhoun Technical Education. So for education purposes, they are allowing me to utilize this form. But you obviously can't use it for any kind of employer, and like I say, you cannot get online and just download this form anywhere. I just use this so that I can show you what the form looks like, and we can go over how to fill it out, and realize that the form across the states is fairly alike. And so your Pennsylvania form that you're going to have to fill out for your project is relatively similar to this. And it has, most of the states' forms have two sections. There's a section which in South Carolina is up here at the top, where you list all the employees and their social security numbers and how much wages they made that quarter. And then there's another section, which in South Carolina is at the bottom, where everything is calculated and how much the employer owes for South Carolina SUTA tax is calculated on that bottom, in this case, the bottom part. In Pennsylvania, they have this calculation part on the top and the employee listing part on the bottom. But it's still, the two parts are very similar. Alright, so let's take a look, and we'll start at the top. And box number 1 is the employer name, and again, that'll come already pre-printed, just like it is here for us. An account number, that will also already be pre-printed. You'll have an account number with SUTA, with the state, and they will have that pre-printed in there. Box 3, the quarter ending date. If this is for the third quarter, the end of the third quarter is September 30th, so that would be the date you would put in there, whatever is the date of the end of the quarter. And you would use the same form for each of the four quarters. Box 4, the total number of pages. So if you have lots of employees, more than what you can fit on this one page, then you would use multiple pages and keep listing employees till you got them all listed. And then you put in box 4 of the top page, how many total pages do you have? For us, of course, that'll only ever just be 1. And box 5, the total number of employees, and however many that is, you would put that in there, that how many employees are listed. And every employee who got even $1 of wages during that quarter has to be listed. If the employee did not make any wages during that particular quarter, then you would not list that employee. Alright, down here is the employee's social security number, and then the name, and they want you to list the first name first, and then the middle initial, and then the last name last. Okay, and then finally the total wages, and that again is not the total cumulative wages, that is the total wages just for that quarter. Now, on your project, you have a quarter to date column on your payroll report. And so at the end of the quarter, when you go to fill out the Pennsylvania SUTA form, you'll be able to see how much quarterly gross wages that each employee has made from that quarter to date column. Line 9, total wages this page. Okay, since we're only going to have one page, you can leave that blank. And then line 10 is total wages this whole report. And so you could just put your total wages there. Now, if you had more than one page, each page would have a number on line 9, and then the top page would have the grand total on line 10. Line 11 is over here to the left. Excess wages paid this quarter. Excess wages, when you're talking about unemployment, means the wages that are above the limit. Now, for FUTA, the excess wages are any wages that you pay that are over the $7,000 maximum. For the state of South Carolina, $12,000 is currently the max. Okay, and so this says any wages out of all of these wages that you're showing on the sheet, how much of those wages were wages that were paid already after that person hit the $12,000 maximum. Okay, and so if I had 2 employees and I had one that had $6,000 worth of wages and one that had $1,000 worth of wages for this quarter, the one with the $6,000 wages, they'd already hit their $12,000 max 2 quarters ago. And so all of their, I'm still going to list them, and I'm still going to list their $6,000. But in box 11, I would put that $6,000 as being excess wages that aren't going to be taxable. The other employee that got $1,000 of wages, maybe they just started working here, and so they haven't reached their maximum yet. And so they will be part of the $7,000 total that's on line 10, but $6,000 would be in line 11 from the excess wages of the first employee. All right, so that's the employee listing section. Now let's take a look at the bottom, and the bottom is the calculation section. Now some of the stuff is the same because they're considered actually 2 different forms. If you take a look up at the employee list section up in the way left top corner, it says UCE 120. That's that form. That is a separate form from this bottom part, which is form UCE 121, okay, or 101. In any case, it's a separate form. They just happen to be attached on the same piece of paper, but they are considered 2 separate forms. So again, I have to put across the top here the SEDEW, that's the SUTA agency, to put the account number. It was the same as the account number that's in box 2 up above. The quarter ending date is just going to be the same as box 3 above. And the current FEIN number, so that's the Federal Employer ID number. Okay, and we're going to put that. All that information is going to go in there. Over to the left, the name and address should be already pre-printed, and you can double check and make sure. And then also over to the left, in box 1, it says number of employees worked, who worked during or received pay for the payroll period, which includes the 12th of the month. And then they have month 1, month 2, and month 3. So if this was the 3rd quarter, month 1 would be July, month 2 would be August, and month 3 would be September. And so on the 12th of August for month 1, how many employees did I have who worked or received pay, either one, during on the 12th on that exact day. And then I would look at August 12th. What employees did I have who either worked on August 12th or received pay on August 12th? And then on September 12th for month 3. Okay, and so I fill those out. Okay, then I go up here, and this is box 2A. Total wages paid this quarter. So that should equal the same as box 10 here. The total gross wages paid this quarter that is taxable for SUTA. 2B is, it says less the excess over the maximum. Now this form says 10,000, I believe. However, this is an older form. Currently, the form would say 12,000. So that's the same as what we have up here in box 11, the excess, the non-taxable wages, because those employees already met the maximum. Okay? And then there's box 2C, the net taxable wages, which is taking 2A and subtracting out 2B. So we're taking out the total wages for the quarter minus the excess wages for the quarter, and we should get the wages that are taxable for SUTA for the quarter in line 2C. Then we go on to box 3A. It says total contributions due. Item 2C times, and then there's a little NA here, not applicable. On a real business form, their rate, their SUTA rate, would be pre-printed right there, whether it's point 034 or 0.056 or whatever their rate is, would be pre-printed there. And you would take that rate, multiply it by the taxable SUTA that's on line 2C, and that gets you how much SUTA tax we have to pay on line 3A. Okay, line 3B is a surcharge. Now, the state of South Carolina did have to end up borrowing money from FUTA, and there was a problem, and there were companies in South Carolina who then had to pay this extra charge. Okay, and that again would be pre-printed. I believe we're all done with that, and so that should not be a problem anymore. Okay, line 4 and line 5 is interest and penalty. Of course, if you're paying late, you would have to calculate the interest and the penalty and put them on there. And of course, you will never be late, and therefore you will not have to worry about this. And on your project, you should not have to worry about this. Okay. Line 6 is less outstanding credit of such and such. This is if you had paid too much from some previous quarter and they had found your mistake and that you had paid too much, or you had found a mistake and that you had paid too much, and so they owe you this money, and now you can apply it against this quarter's amount so that you won't have to pay as much this quarter. On your project, of course, we won't have that, so that will just be a blank. That line will be blank. And line 7, total amount due this quarter. So as far as you're concerned, the amount that you have on line 3A, which the amount of tax that you calculated, and then all the rest of these would be blank, and then line 7 would be the same number. And you would write out a check to the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce for that amount that's on line 7. Now, on your project, the calculation part of Pennsylvania, like I say, is at the top of the form. And there is one thing that's different there in the fact that they have a little part of the SUTA that has to be paid by the employee, not just the employer. And so most of it's by the employer, but there's a little part by the employee. And so all quarter long, we've been withholding a little bit from each employee for their SUTA. And there's a separate line on their calculation part that shows, well, how much did you withhold from the employees, and that has to be added in because we collected that from the employees, but we have not yet given it to the state of Pennsylvania yet. And so they do have a separate line on that, in addition to lines that are similar to these calculation lines. If you have any questions about that Pennsylvania SUTA form, be sure to ask.